Hello, and welcome to another episode of Creative Wednesdays. My name is Yanina Murray, and this is the show where I pull back the curtain on my creative process. So, for this episode, we are going to be doing something a little fun and a little unique. We are going to be talking about the step one in my creative process, the beginnings of everything, whether it's a still image or a video project or just any type of creative project, and that is conceptualization. Now, I have been a photographer for over 10 years now, so oftentimes the visuals for a particular image or series or a video appears naturally in my brain. As a result, I have collections of receipt papers, napkins, weird notes in my phone, and scraps of paper that literally open any drawer in my house and you are sure to find some sort of sketch of insert image or a bunch of words or a half bit of poetry that I'm hoping to turn into something later. But one of the things that I like to do before starting is I like to get a really good feel about some of the language that I'm going to use, some of the emotions, so that when I am talking to a model, I can express what it is that this piece means to me. So for this image, we are working on cracks in the wall, which was inspired by a poem that I wrote in 2011. I had just moved out and was attending college for the first time, and I was having a serious bout of depression, and I literally started feeling like the walls were illusionary and that I could hear voices within them and that they were this otherworldly dimension, and if I could just see beyond them, I could see the darkness within them, which probably meant that I should have seen a psychiatrist, but I was 19 and so still pretty early on, and I thought I was invincible. So once I've kind of written down some of the words that I want to focus on, like for example, I wrote down isolation, despair, fear, and grief, and then darkness seeping in through the walls, which, as I was stating, I kind of was feeling like there was something otherworldly invading my space. And for me, I often represent mental health or depression via darkness or shadows or weird, not quite there, shades, usually some sort of shadows. Um, so once I kind of have like a verbal language picked out, I always start by drawing my model. It doesn't have to be a good sketch. In fact, most of my sketches are probably, I don't think anybody but me would know what they were looking at. Um, and I really feel like body language is the most important part of an image because you can convey so much with just a simple turn of the head and an arching in the back and the pulling in of the shoulder blades. You don't have to see somebody's face to know they're crying. I'm sure anybody who has seen someone cry, you recognize these things almost instinctually. You can see someone hiding in a corner with their back to you, and you could see just by the way their head is tilted and their shoulders are pulled that they're upset. And so body language is something that I always like to figure out first and foremost. And for me, I really think about, okay, how did my subject get here? Like, okay, they're crying, they're sad, so this is the body language, but what happened right before? And what's about to happen? Are they going to get up? Are they going to move? Are they walking through a hall? What is that? Because that really, for me, helps me convey the scene, because I want it to feel like a moment, like this is just a snapshot out of time. And then with this particular image, I wanted it to feel like that moment of collapsing, and then right as she falls, the wall begins to crack apart and you can start to see the smoke billowing out from the inside. And my hope with this piece is I'm also going to be doing not just the still image, but a cinematograph. And my hope is I can utilize, I don't know what the appropriate term is, but I guess it's like the horror story glitch type of effect where everything looks fine and peaceful and then it glitches and oh my god, now there's a creepy person like literally right in front of you and it glitches again and it's back to reality. So for the cinematograph, I really want this image to appear as just a girl in front of a blank wall, and then it's going to glitch to the cracks beginning to form and smoke billowing, which I think is going to be super cool. But once I have like my initial visual, I like to try and sketch it out from the perspective of what I want it to look out. For this image, I chose square. I do choose square an awful lot. I just like the format. I like how centered it can be. But the next thing that I do is I really start thinking about how I'm going to make this image happen. Like, okay, so I know I want her in a dress. It's probably going to be very monochromatic. I'm probably going to have her in a black dress because I really like dark, moody tones, and black dresses are just kind of my jam. I go back and forth between black and white. And then I have to start thinking about, what do I need technically? And for this particular set, you can see I'm kind of sketching out a side view of the set because I know I'm going to be setting this up in my kitchen because I don't want to have to build a container for the smoke machine to sit on, because as with the cracks in the wall, there is going to be smoke billowing out, and I would like that to actually be real smoke rather than manufactured smoke, which means I'm going to need to find some way of creating a set in which the fog machine can sit behind and then push smoke through the cracks. So the little side image there, which you can barely see in the left hand corner, is my rough idea of how this is going to look, where the set's going to sit, and then where the smoke machine's going to sit. And I'm most likely going to have to then do like a little cage for it, because anyone who's worked with smoke, even if you do ground smoke, if it's in an open space, it's going to spread out, and I don't want it to spread out. I want it to fill the box and then seep through the cracks. I want it to go in the direction that I want it to, not the direction it does. So as you can see, I'm also writing down a list of supplies but prior to picking up a camera, there's a lot of things that I need to consider. I know I'm going to need a model. I know I'm going to need a black dress. I know I'm going to need to build this wall that I can crack, which for me probably means I'm going to need a whole lot of cardboard, because cardboard is a cheap building material rather than actual wood. And I'm going to need tape to build this box contraption to contain the smoke. I'm going to need paint, because obviously I don't want my wall cardboard covered, and I'm going to need a knife to cut all of this stuff apart, as well as a black dress, a model, and a fog machine. And I might also incorporate some mud, because I want the wall to be textured, and cardboard just isn't textured. It's just not textured. So as you can see, I flipped the page here, and I'm just reminding myself that I need to make a little contraption that attaches to the backdrop to, put the smoke. And then I'm also going to one of the things that I do is, because a lot of my images, I want them to feel like a story or like you're stepping into time, I will often then draw a second take. So I will end up with, okay, this was the original image that popped into my head, but if I were to do this a little differently, what could make it better? And you can see my sketch is getting really bad, but I really started to think about the idea of, how did those cracks appear? How did we make that bridge between our internal world and our external world? And one of the things that I've always been fascinated by, and maybe it's because I'm a super big nerd and I love Dungeons and Dragons, and there's this one spell where you can touch somebody and imbue them with a memory. So kind of playing on that idea, I wanted to do a second angle of this image where she's walking past it, and we've all done it, or maybe we all haven't, I don't know, but I have done it a lot of times when you're just overwhelmed with an intense amount of fear or emotions and you're on that verge of a panic attack. You instinctually reach out to catch yourself. And I thought, wouldn't that be such a beautiful symbolic gesture, where she's in the verge of a panic attack, she's experiencing all of these emotions that come with depression, and feeling like she has no friends, and feeling like everyone's out to get her. But the moment her hand makes contact with the real world, that wall, you can start to see what's actually happening underneath. You can start to see those cracks forming, and it's not happening in reality. It's only happening because it's happening to her. And that moment of touch is her taking her internal monologue and projecting it into the world. So I really loved that second angle. I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to shoot it, but I did want to sketch it out. And then the last and final piece of the puzzle for me is, I always talk about logistics. And logistics is, I don't want multiple sets, because multiple sets is is a pain. I have to put 2 sets, it's twice as much work. And so how can I overcome the fact that I'm working in my kitchen and I don't want more than 2 sets? So my conclusion that I reached is we are going to do 1 set, and we're going to film the first pose separate, and we're going to composite them later, which is the beauty of modern technology, is I can do both poses with a wall that is not cracked or broken, and then I can layer it in Photoshop and we can do this really cool composite thing and then pair it with video, because I'm recently learning that you can actually do a lot with Photoshop and video. So I'm super excited about this project, but I did want to take a really quick moment and just go over this with you guys, because I think it's so important. We talked about it in my last video where I built a set in my garage, that one of the first things you need to do is figure out what you're shooting, what it's going to look like, and go over angles, shots, and really nail down the specifics. So this is basically me nailing down the specifics for a much shorter shoot. I'm only really doing 2 angles, but all of these things are going to be super important when we build our set next week, and I'm so excited to take you from step 1 to set building. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Creative Wednesdays. I'm Yanini Marie, and this has been super fun.